The battle over the Ten Commandments continues in Giles County, Virginia. I'm Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. Joining me is Matt Barber, vice president of Liberty Counsel Action. Matt, we've talked on this program before, and I know you had Harry Mahet here when I was in Israel talking about the Giles County case. And the Giles County case, for those who are not familiar with it, is in Giles County, Virginia, not far from Liberty University, about an hour from Liberty University in terms of where the court is, and Giles County is a little bit further than that. But it's a school district, and the school district has opened up a forum so that individuals from the community can post historical documents on law and government. And there's a series of documents there, 29 frames, one of which is the Ten Commandments. The ACLU filed suit saying that the Ten Commandments ought to be removed from this display. And there's been some new developments where the school board has now accepted a new proposal by the donor of the original set of documents called the Foundations of American Law and Government display. And what he has done is he has proposed putting up page 94 from a high school textbook by Prentice Hall that talks about the roots of democracy in place of the Ten Commandments. Now, the media has misunderstood what was going on, and so we want to talk about this and this controversy that's going on with the ACLU and their displeasure over the Ten Commandments.
Well, and the ACLU may have a little more displeasure ahead of them as well, because the ACLU has a marked hostility toward any representation of our Judeo-Christian background, heritage in this nation. Clearly, the Ten Commandments was one of the primary foundational documents our founding fathers looked to in framing our unique form of government and law. And the media, I think, as you point out, either has a misunderstanding or is intentionally misrepresenting what's going on here. They say, one media headline says, Giles County to remove Ten Commandments from Narrows High School. Well, that's true to an extent, but again, the whole purpose here is to relay to students the true history of our founding, and so they still will have access to an understanding of the Ten Commandments.
That's right. In fact, on page 94 of the American History textbook by Prentice Hall, and Prentice Hall, like McGraw-Hill, are two major textbook publishers. It has a page that talks about the roots of democracy. And the roots of democracy begin at the very top with the Ten Commandments. Yeah. And from there you have different things going through history, including the different Enlightenment movements. There was an Enlightenment in Europe, and there was an Enlightenment movement in the United States, and they were not the same exact movements. The one here in the United States was more Christianized, and the one in Europe was more secular. Mm-hmm. And then you have different events that come down through history all the way through the founding of America up through the present time. And it's basically called the roots of democracy. But it traces the roots of democracy through history, including the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta coming after the Ten Commandments was the idea that the king himself is under the law. And so you don't have the king above the law. You have the Ten Commandments, of course, that predate that. And from a Western civilization and culture perspective, profoundly shape Western culture and civilization, including the United States of America. Our laws, our culture would not be the same without that history of the Ten Commandments shaping our culture and laws.
And you have to wonder what it is that the secularists like the ACLU find so threatening about an accurate representation of history. And I think it goes a little deeper than they're finding it threatening. I think that they literally are trying to scrub history. They're engaged in religious cleansing. They want to revise history to suggest that we have more of a European background, like during the French Revolution, we are a secularist nation, which we simply are not. That just does not track with history.
That's right. So what this has done is, what we have here is the Giles County School Board has created the opportunity for individuals or groups to be able to come forth and present a proposal, and they would consider that proposal. And the proposal would be documents that reveal American law and government history, whether it's Virginia, the county of Giles County, or the United States of America, or things that influenced our law and government. So in this case, a local attorney proposed the Foundations of American Law and Government display, and he went down through exactly why each one of the documents were there, including the Ten Commandments, including the Magna Carta, the Mayflower Compact, the Declaration of Independence, and other things such as the George Mason's Declaration of Rights, and the Thomas Jefferson's statute for religious freedom. Those were very influential and important for history here in Virginia and, of course, throughout the country. So those were there. And then the court case happened. And during the court decision, the judge suggested to the ACLU and to us who are representing the Giles County that maybe everyone could live happily ever after if, just as a thought, you eliminate the first 4 commandments and have the last 6. Well, the ACLU wasn't real excited about that either, because they said the last 6, they start with thou shalt. So even if you only have the 6 that talk only about your relationship to each other as opposed to God, then people would still know it comes from the 10 Commandments. So they wouldn't have been happy with just having the last 6. There's no question about that. And so in the meantime, Bobby, who is this person who is the local private citizen, comes forth, and he has been someone who has been taught in the Virginia public schools, knows the Virginia history, and he's very astute. And this textbook is being used in the Virginia schools.
Right.
In fact, it is a textbook that recently was used by the very student plaintiff in this particular case. It is a textbook whose parent of that student plaintiff agrees with in deposition that, yes, that in fact is true, that the 10 Commandments is part of our root of democracy. And this individual said, yeah, you can teach that in school. You just can't post the 10 Commandments on the board.
It's absurd.
Which is absurd. So he comes back and says, why don't we just post on there exactly the page that everyone in Virginia has to study from? And it's according to the Virginia Standards of Learning anyway, and it's very historical. And
it has the 10 Commandments.
And it has the 10 Commandments,
kind of hard
because
for them to argue with.
You cannot have a display on law and government without having the 10 Commandments. It's an incomplete display.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. He proposed it. The Giles County accepted it, and now it's up there as part of this display.
You know, what's chilling to me, though, is that the judge would suggest redacting 4 of the 10 Commandments. You know, it reminds me of there was an old Mel Brooks movie, History of the World, and it portrays Moses walking down with these tablets, and he said, God has given me these 15, and he drops one and it breaks, and he says these 10 commandments, which now that's kind of funny, but that's what that drew to my recollection was that scene from that movie, and it's about that ridiculous.
Well, and I think, the judge was trying to come up with something that might have throwing that out as to possibly, is there any way that there could be a compromise on this?
Sure.
But even throwing that out, the ACLU pushed back on it because they said, well, the last 6, they begin with thou shalt. So in the ACLU's view, I think you would eliminate the first 4 and rewrite the last 6.
Right.
So you wouldn't have thou shalt not kill or murder. You would say maybe it's a good idea not to kill someone, something like that, so that no one would know it's coming from the 10 Commandments.
Yeah. So where do we go from here? I know we've got a mediation.
The case is still before the court, and the court hasn't made an ultimate ruling on the case yet. Frankly, I think the case is moot now because the ultimate display has been changed. And in fact, they've already admitted that indeed you can, and this is accurate representation, and you can teach it. And frankly, if you can teach it, and it is being taught, and it's constitutional because it's integrated in the curriculum, which the Supreme Court says you can integrate the 10 Commandments and the Bible into the curriculum, and it's done so, and it's constitutional, and that's what it's done here. And they've acknowledged that this is part of the curriculum, and they're not challenging the curriculum, then it makes no sense that you can't post the curriculum or parts of the curriculum up on the wall.
Well, that's good news. It sounds like everybody might go away happy.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
About the ACLU, exactly.
I think the case will still be going for a little while, but we'll see. Yeah. This is a very interesting, not only litigation, but it really is part of the foundational history of America. And there are some people who want to literally rewrite American history because they don't like American history. But you can't look at American history without our Judeo-Christian roots, and certainly without the 10 Commandments as it relates to law and culture in Western civilization. To learn more about our history, you can ask for the book by David Barton, Original Intent. It's a great book talking about the history and the founding of our country. It's called Original Intent by David Barton. You can also order my book, Take Back America. You can go to Liberty Counsel's website to order those 2 books, as well as other resources at lc.org. And when you go to lc.org, make sure you sign up for The Liberator, a free monthly newsletter, and also the Liberty Alert, a free regular email that will keep you up to date on issues regarding your family, faith, and freedom. That's lc.org.